are here for the Man of the Month, one of my very favorite things to do every month. And I'm your host, Marchant Johnson, and I'm here with a wonderful guest that I've interviewed several times before. That's the wonderful Barry Selby. Welcome, Barry.
Hi, Michelle. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
So happy to have you, and thank you so much for being our Man of the Month this month.
It's my pleasure.
So before I forget, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because every month we have new Man of the Month videos and ongoing valuable content just for you, and you don't want to miss it. Okay, so with that, I want to give Barry a little bit of a formal introduction, and then we're going to jump right into what I think will be a really timely and important and yet evergreen topic, and that is tune yourself up for love. So Barry, here we go. Barry Selby is a passionate champion for the divine feminine, helping strong, successful women create balance in love, life, and business. He awakens women to own and express their feminine magnificence and majesty in love and in the world. He also helps his clients attract relationships that equal who they really are. As the self-mastery expert, Barry is a compassionate guide and teacher for those seeking a healthier relationship with themselves. That's where it all starts, right, Barry?
Yes, it does.
With over 30 years of training and experience, including a master's degree in spiritual psychology and 20 years as a spiritual counselor, he has helped thousands learn to love themselves and live in wholeness. He brings deep wisdom, gentle masculine strength and presence, and joyful guidance to assist his clients in their journey to true self-love. He is an in-demand, inspirational speaker standing for love, healthy relationships, and living with passion and joy. Amen. Hallelujah. I'm in on all of that.
So glad.
So Barry, I'm excited about this topic because, as I said, I think it's particularly relevant right now, but I also think it's an evergreen topic. And
Yes.
that's self-love and self-care and tuning yourself up for love. So start out by telling us why you think this is so important and what we can start to do right now to not only support ourselves through this unusual period, this unusual opportunity in the world's time, or also to prepare ourselves for love as we move forward. Because most of the women in this audience are really seeking for that loving, committed partnership kind of relationship.
Which I think is a good choice, personally. It's good to look for that. However, one of my things is how do you look for that? And where do you look from? So let me get to that piece. In my coaching over the years, one of the things that's become very common for me with my clients is that a lot of times what a lot of my clients have dealt with, and my clients are almost always women, is it's actually looking for love externally versus loving themselves first, which is why I'm so adamant about loving yourself first. Self-love is not some namby-pamby thing. It's a powerful place to start from. And during this time we're in now, which is, as I've called it, is an interesting experience, definitely an unusual circumstance, you put it, it's true. There's an opportunity here which a lot of people are missing. You know, there's such a sense of either stress or containment or frustration that they're not getting on with life because they have to stay home or work from home or be isolated, that they may be neglecting their own self-support and self-love that could really be a tool to free them to be more attracted to what they want to attract in relationship later on as well. So ultimately for me, this is actually a good time to practice because in some ways you have more limitations what you can do out there, so you spend more time working in here. So you've almost been gifted this by accident, so to speak.
Yes, this may not have been the gift we were looking for in beautiful wrapping paper with a sparkly bow. And yet it can be a gift. So I want to follow up on a couple things you said there, because I think you said some really key things, Barry, that I just want to pick up on. So we hear this concept of self-love all the time and how important self-love is. And like you said, I think you said it's not that mamby-pamby thing. I think it was the exact words you said. And I can't agree with you enough that I think that everything really does begin within. And this is an opportunity for us to go within. But what I want to help the listeners understand more deeply right now is, first of all, how do you define self-love? And secondly, how do we move towards a greater level of that self-love?
So self-love, as literal as it is to actually love ourselves, which a lot of us don't actually do. We may say, oh, I love myself, I'm fine. but could you sit in front of the mirror for half an hour, actually gaze in your eyes and enjoy the experience? Or would you be climbing the walls and going, I need to go do something. Let me go open up my phone or go cook some food or something. So that level of openness to yourself is really what self-love is about, is that you care about yourself, I wouldn't say unconditionally, but certainly to the place where you appreciate yourself more than you may have in the past, perhaps judged yourself. That's one of the things we deal with a lot in the work. The other part of that, which is important for me when you start loving yourself, is when you start loving yourself, it's like you fill up your own battery first. Rather than looking for somebody out there to fill up your battery for you, which is sometimes what a lot of people do, men and women, when you love yourself first, it's like you don't need a partner, but you can desire one from a much healthier place. In fact, that shift from need to desire is a paradigm shift for a lot of relationship people, because the idea is that when you're no longer in need, you're no longer needing someone to make you feel better, which is a codependent trap. You're actually desiring someone to add to your life that's already going well. And for all my clients, that's one of my goals, and especially if you're in this journey right now, to practice things that support you in being more whole, more healthy, more alive, more loving, are all things that make you more attractive when you do start dating. So it's a double whammy, so to speak. You don't need a relationship so much because you love yourself already, and you become more attractive to those relationship partners because you don't have a needy energy about you.
Right, you're attracting a relationship more from a place of abundance.
Yes.
Where it's like the icing on the cake. You're not looking for the cake itself.
Right, you are the
yeah, you are the cake. A very delicious one, I might add.
I'd like to think so, yes.
Yes, and also it also comes up for me that when we have that deep level of self-love, it's like a self-acceptance. I mean, I think at the core of all of this, what most of us desire as human beings is to be loved, appreciated, accepted for exactly who we are. And it's like, if we're not able to do that for ourselves, if we're not able to have compassion, love, show charity, kindness, and forgiveness even for ourselves, how is it that we expect that someone else is going to be able to see us through those kind and gentle lenses, if you will, right?
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, here's a question I'll offer the viewer. Have you noticed in your life where you've been more willing to help somebody else out, or be kind to somebody else, or compassionate to somebody else, or perhaps forgiving to somebody else more than you are to yourself?
Absolutely.
That's the switch which I'm inviting you to choose to turn, because being with yourself now more than ever is a great time to start focusing on those little kinks and sharp edges inside yourself that may need a little bit of work, so you can start loving yourself more. And yes, forgiveness is part of the work too, but really starting to learn how you're more valuable than maybe you're giving yourself credit for. And that's where the journey begins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I often will think about this, and have talked with clients about this from time to time. If we spoke the words to others that we sometimes have going on in our own minds, we wouldn't have any friends left.
The quote is like, if we spoke to our friends like we spoke to ourselves, we wouldn't have any. So exactly that. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And that's the thing is, I was going to say, that's the thing is, it's amazing that so many people, all of us, it seems, walk around with this incredible amount of abuse to ourselves internally that nobody else will ever see. But yet we think we're nice, kind, caring people. Again, self-love. If we really love ourselves, then why do we have the opportunity to do less judging, blaming, upsetting ourselves internally, yet we do it so often because of the way perhaps the world taught us, or because we were told by our parents. So really starting to honor and respect ourselves is a great place to become more attractive to those partners, as I mentioned earlier, but also enjoy your life more fully because you love yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, I don't know if this is as universally true for men as it is for women, but I think for a lot of women, when we look in the mirror, and I'm talking now more about the physical side of things, but it can also be, being self-judgmental about other qualities or characteristics. I think we have a tendency to see our flaws. I'm talking specifically about physically when we look in the mirror, but I think it also applies in other ways. And yet, as I've spoken to men, and you can back me up on this, Barry, when a man is attracted to a woman, he's not necessarily seeing her flaws, he's really seeing her beauty. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't think she's human or that he thinks she's perfect, but he's not focused on, oh my gosh, I think that one wrinkle right underneath your eye got a little deeper the last 2 weeks.
There's a few pieces to unpack there. One of those is when you ask about women versus men. I would say that maybe men are more discreet about their own self-judgment.
Ah,
I know that I have been working a lot over the years to really have a better relationship with myself. That's why I teach this, because I've been doing it for myself for the last 30 years, to really respect and appreciate who I am, even though I'm not perfect as I could be. And the challenge we have in this world is that dangerous thing called comparison. We have this bad habit of comparing our looks, our appearance, our physique, our way of speaking, whatever it is, with other people who we tend to put above us. So really, again, coming back to loving ourselves and really appreciating ourselves, it's come from the place where you own who you are. As I mentioned earlier, that something I think really makes more women more attractive is when you really own your beauty by being internally beautiful. Because yes, you may have one more wrinkle than you like, or a freckle that's out of place, or something else where you judge yourself because of something that happened 20 years ago. But the reality is, if you own your beauty, that transcends a lot of times your physical perspective or perception of yourself. And in fact, for a man who's single looking at women, he's more attracted to women who really are enjoying their own beauty, being almost ebullient in it. That's a fancy word, but it basically abundantly in their beauty. And that becomes more attractive. And a lot of times, and I speak for myself, I went out with women who weren't the classical beauty looking women, but they were attracted to me because they owned their beauty themselves.
mhm.
And that's the difference.
So when you say that, owned their beauty, what does that mean? Give us a little bit more definition around that.
It's where they really inhabit themselves. There are a lot of people I've known, and I did it myself early in life, where I felt almost like I didn't fit in my body. I didn't own myself. I didn't feel comfortable here. And so a lot of women, especially, I watch, I like people watching. So I've seen a lot of women over the years, and I observe them just because it's part of my work in a way. I can justify it that way. But the women, I noticed that they may look beautiful because of the way they look, like almost like a glamour shot in a magazine. But the way they carry themselves almost takes away from that, because they don't live in their bodies. They don't own themselves. They don't embody full ownership of their joy, beauty, movement, and life. One of the qualities of the feminine is movement. One of the qualities of the feminine is almost that joy of life, of living. And I see women sometimes who are actually awkward in their own bodies because they haven't fully said, you know what, I'm going to enjoy being here. And it's almost that shift that can open up the doors for more expression of love that way. Again, self-love. It includes this idea that when you're in your body, why not enjoy the experience of being there? Mm-hmm. That's what that fullness of love is about.
Yeah, and as I've interviewed men and talked to so many men over the years, one of the things that men have shared with me is one of the things that makes a woman attractive to them is when she is like lit from within, like she's excited about life, she's excited about her passions, the things that are important to her. She's able to kind of like express herself from that heart-centered place. So you really get a feeling of who she is. I think that kind of goes along with being comfortable in the body. And so there's a confidence that she knows who she is. Like you know, even if she's not necessarily the classic beauty per se, she knows who she is and she carries herself in this way with confidence, with clarity about who she is, and with that passion and with that joy that comes from within, which I think is really quite irresistibly attractive.
Absolutely. And it's also, by the way, it's not arrogance. This is the thing about this. When you really live in yourself and you have self-love, this is not ego-driven. This is heart-driven. It really brings you to the place of really that joyful expression, that lovey, juicy expression of love makes you more attractive. Absolutely. It's one of those things that separates a two-dimensional woman from a three-dimensional woman, so to speak. And again, because I see women I live in Los Angeles, so there's a lot of women I see who are basically like models. But the truth is, in a lot of ways, even though they're physical, I see them in the world, they seem two-dimensional because there's no depth to them. There's no movement, energy, ownership, freedom there. But when I see a woman losing that place of freedom, they may not be that magazine picture, but they're beautiful because they own their space, they live in their bodies, and they really do enjoy being a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm having a little flashback as you're talking about this, and I love the description of the two-dimensional versus the three-dimensional woman. I think that's a really great way to describe it. But I'm having this little flashback from years ago when I was single, and I used to, from time to time, go to single dances or parties or events or things like that. And there were these two sisters that I didn't know very well, but they would occasionally be at these events that I would go to. And it seemed like the men were just like falling at their feet. I mean, it just seemed like, the men just couldn't get enough of these two women. And yet they weren't really what you would call like drop dead gorgeous women. Mm-hmm. They were attractive and they took good care of themselves and they dressed nice. But what they did have, they had a couple of key things. And, for a while I was really like bamboozled by what it was that was going on there. But,
Yes.
with some time and distance, and I've been able to reflect back on that, they did carry themselves in the way we're talking about. They did seem really lit up with joy about their life. And they also had this ability to like interact with other people in a way that made them feel really good. And I think a part of that, Barry, was they were comfortable in their own skin enough that they weren't like in that mindset of thinking about, oh, should I say this? Should I do that? They were just like dancing and interacting with men in a really fun, playful, joyful way. And they had a way of making the men feel really relaxed and comfortable. And so even though they weren't like what you'd call drop dead gorgeous, it just seemed like they attracted men like, white on rice.
Well, the two words in there for me are comfortable and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about being comfortable. I mean, it's true for men too. I mean, we as men, I know, are more attractive when we're comfortable in our skin, because a lot of men are driven to like look perfect and set up certain things, and they hold us up with such rigidity. It's not comfortable. And I think, from my experience, I've noticed that women may again be attracted to the two-dimensional look of the man, but when they meet a man who really is comfortable in his skin and is free to be himself, he's more attracted to her as well. So this works both ways on both sides of the gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's a sense of that there's depth there. So it's not just a body that might look perfect or look like it could be on a magazine cover, but you sense there's like more there. You sense there's some depth. And I think that's attractive to both men and women, assuming we have some depth, which hopefully we do.
Well, listen, I live in LA, so I'm not going to say anything about that.
And I also think that when we're comfortable in our own skin, we have the ability to be more vulnerable, more real, more relatable. And that makes it safe for someone else to interact with us in that way. So if we're more real, if we're more vulnerable, if we're more relatable, then it makes it safe for a man. In this case, we're speaking to women. It makes it safe for a man to also share some of those parts of himself. Like, we're not just doing the facade dance where, we've both got on the masks and we're trying to outmaneuver each other.
What's the thing also with dating, I remember in my youth, where dating was always like best behavior. You just put on the best look, best thing, and keep contained. So, like, if something happened to knock that sideways, one of the most, this happened to me recently, I was having dinner with a friend, not dating, just having dinner at home, was, some sauce got spilled. And it was almost like started laughing. It wasn't like, oh no. It was just, we just laughed with it because it was just a mistake. It wasn't bad. But that's part of the shift, is when you move into more comfortable being in yourself. If something goes sideways, you're not shocked by it or reactive to it. You become, oh, that's interesting. Let me deal with that. And that's actually, frankly, a way of living life in a more functional way too, is how do you live life that's more able to be comfortable with what's going on, not asleep, but also not be reactive to what's going on. So same is true with dating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just being able to recognize that life in, whether we're alone, whether we're with someone, whatever, life is imperfect. When hasn't it been? It always has been. It's just, that's the reality of life. So being able to be comfortable with yourself and not expect everything to be all glossy and magazine cover perfect every second of every day makes it more real. And I think we really all deeply long for that kind of connection. But I think there's a lot of pressure on women and also on men to kind of feel like we have to show up like as though everything's perfect all the time. And that's just not real.
Right. And to be honest, I'm on the dating apps too, being single. I do know some of the profiles that I see the women there, they're looking for a man who is perfect. And I'm looking and saying, you may not get that. So being real is more important than being perfect. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I can remember years ago, Barry, watching this Oprah episode, and she had on, what's the guy that wrote Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man? What's his name?
Boy.
Steve Harvey.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
They had Steve Harvey on, and so they were giving single women some relationship advice. And so one of the things they had this one woman do was kind of like make a big list of all the different things that she wanted in a man. Well, she had a very, very lengthy and a very, very specific list. I mean,
Yes.
down to the point of like he can't use a straw. He can't sip with a straw. You know, it's like that's the level of detail we had, right?
Minutia. Yes, minutia.
Minutia. We're not talking about like hard and character stuff. We're talking about all these just random details, and it was like, you know, miles long. So Steve and Oprah, of course, were taking a look at this, and I remember what they said. They said something like, and I don't remember if it was Steve or Oprah, but I think it might have been Steve, and he said something like, well, there is someone like this. The problem is that he's not currently available on the planet because his name is Jesus.
There you go.
So I think part of self-love, though, this is my point in bringing up this story. When we have self-love, it also allows us to be more open to loving other imperfect people besides ourselves.
Yes, and the thing for me, and I talk about to my clients, is it's important to know what you really must have as requirements. Like these are the green flags you must have.
Mm-hmm.
They may be monogamous, they don't smoke, they take care of themselves, they have a good relationship with their mother. Those are good things. But straw, it's not straw, that's not really a priority. So definitely be clear about what's important. But then be flexible on the rest. So I agree with you. Probably, there's no real number, maybe it's 5, 10, 20 different things, but really the important stuff. You want someone who basically, because there's certain things that you know that if they exhibit those behaviors, you cannot handle it.
Right.
Because you go, I can adjust to that. You know, leaving the toothpaste cap off, that could be fine.
Right.
But cheating, that wouldn't be fine. So understanding those differences is important.
Yeah, it's fair enough to have a certain number of non-negotiables, but we don't want our non-negotiable list to be
Impossible.
3,800 pages.
Yeah.
You know, I think another thing too is I think sometimes it's easy to get like super zeroed in or focused on one specific quality or characteristic, like he has to be so high or whatever. And then we reject everyone else outside of that. And I've found over the years that sometimes women will get like kind of hyper focused on one or two like qualities that maybe really are not non-negotiable.
Well, the thing is, a lot of times what people do is they use the past relationship to gauge what the next one's going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
So the past relationship, I want the opposite of that. So whatever that is, I want different. Not the best way to gauge, because you want to get clear about what you value, not what you don't want. So there is an understanding that it's important to know what that real qualifications are for yourself. And as you said, those things that are basically non-negotiables, know what those really are. Because some of them are non-negotiable, and some of them are like, maybe not quite so sticky.
Right, exactly. So we've talked a lot about self-love, and I think this is a really important part of tuning ourselves up for love, because if we want to be loved by someone else, I have a hard time believing someone else can love us more than we can love ourselves, because we will sabotage it. We will. It's almost like trying to pour a gallon of water into a 1-cup container. We don't have the capacity to even receive that until we believe that we're worthy of being loved like that. And so I think this self-love piece that we're talking about is a real key to tuning ourselves up for love. Do you have any other ideas that you want to share quickly that might also enhance this time and help women prepare to be ready for like the transition as we go back into whatever normal's going to be?
True, yeah. So a couple of things actually I would tell. These may not be glamorous, and they may not make sense, but let me explain them first. One of them is gratitude, because, well, let me explain in a moment. The second one is going to be about trust, and these are come up certain ways. When it comes to gratitude, it's easy to go through your day and forget things. I make a list every day. I actually keep the gratitude jar that I do every year, and I put like 3 things every day as a minimum in that jar every day. So at the end of the year, I've got well over 1,000 things I'm grateful for. Great thing to do for the year. That is a practice when you just simply say I'm grateful for. Like I particularly today, I have a new hobby I created, which is learning to bake sourdough bread, and I had the last bit this morning as my toast for my breakfast. And after my breakfast, I was going, that was really good. And I made sure I was like, I'm grateful I did that. So it's a little thing like that, not as small as it is, adds to my own self-support. So gratitude is a key for self-support, self-confidence, and self-trust. The trust piece, one of the simplest things I discovered a long time ago and to teach to my clients is that to trust somebody else, you first got to learn how to trust yourself. And trust isn't like, well, I trust myself, I'm fine. One of the simplest tools we can use to trust ourselves is to keep our agreements. And especially when you're on your own and you're not maybe living alone with other people, maybe you're isolated on your own and you've got things you got to do during the day. I don't mean setting up impossible goals you never get around to, but set up 2, 3, 4 things for the day. There are agreements like intentions. You say, oh, today I want to do this, 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 and this. Maybe it's going to meditate, do some yoga, eat healthy, and maybe go for a walk. Like something that simple. Keep doing those agreements and keep them. So that when you do that, what happens, it's like you build up this reservoir of self-trust inside. The reason I'm talking about that is when you trust yourself, it makes you much more, one, available to love and be lovable. But secondly, it means you also choose more wisely when you meet people, because that self-trust gives you almost like a detection device to sort of see when other people trust themselves too. Because when you are, it seems like the more you love yourself, the more you'll see when somebody else loves themselves as well. When you trust yourself, you'll see more trust in other people. When you're grateful for yourself, you'll recognize more gratitude out there too. It's a mirror thing. So when you do that with other people, you'll meet more people that are attractive to those qualities. And again, pick the things that work for you. Self-trust, gratitude for yourself, and then self-love. Those pieces are parts. I teach this, a whole bunch of these things in my program and my coaching. But those pieces are fundamental to having a more effective life, as well as also an effective ability to date and be in a relationship.
Yeah, I think those are really important things that you mentioned, Barry, and I really, really love them all. I think they all are incredibly valuable, because I do believe that in large part we attract who we are, like it's who we're being. As you know, not so much just what we're doing, it's who we're actually showing up as, because people can feel, whether we intend to let them feel that or not, they can feel energetically, who we are. They really can feel that. We all have that presence and that energy that other people can feel, whether or not we intend to let that happen or not, it does, right? Yeah. It's like the example would be, we've all been with someone who has sort of a desperate energy around them. It's repelling. It's not attractive. Right. And I'm sure some of those people are not intending to let off that they're feeling a desperate energy, and yet we can feel it on the other end, right? And so same thing, if we're raising our own self-love, we're raising our own self-care, we're raising our own self-trust or integrity, if we're raising our own self-compassion, those kinds of things, people are going to feel that in how we're showing up and how we're interacting with them.
Yes, one of the best kept secrets, in fact, because that's where we come from. It's almost like when you don't need a relationship because you already feel whole and complete, is when you'll attract one more easily. It's that simple.
And a more healthy one.
Yes, agreed.
Because you're not attracting someone from that place of neediness or desperation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because that doesn't tend to draw in the best kind of relationship. Oh boy.
Far from it.
No, far from it. So this has been so much fun, Barry. I've loved this conversation, and I'm so glad we had the chance to have it, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with our audience, because I think it will really support them during this time and beyond. And I know that you have a free gift, and for everyone listening, the free gift will be in the description underneath the video here, so you can pick this up. It's a self-love meditation guide. So tell us about this.
How perfect for this talk.
How perfect. You'd think we planned it.
Did we? Amazing. No. Basically, I created the whole thing maybe about a year ago. So talking about self-love as a key, because I realized from my clients, it was one of the things that we're missing. It's kind of an obvious thing that I didn't realize they didn't catch. So what I created was a guide, like a meditation guide. It's a workbook, basically, that you take step by step through meditation. I have a whole guided meditation with audio track that's a separate piece, but what you get with my gift is the written version of that. So you can basically just, as a practice daily for 30 days. And if you do follow the instructions, excuse me, in 30 days, your relationship with yourself will be transformed. Beautiful,
beautiful. So everyone listening, be sure to pick up that free gift by clicking on the link in the description below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell so you'll be notified of new videos. And Barry and I would also love to hear your comments, your thoughts, your questions. So feel free to leave a comment, question, or thought below. And we're so grateful for your presence and for watching, and hope you'll join us again soon for more videos and for more of the Man of the Month series. Thanks once again, Barry. Loved having you, and I'm so grateful for all that you shared.
Thank you for having me again. My pleasure to be here. So thank you, Michelle.
All righty. Bye-bye for now.